Hi, I'm Dr. Tom Denning. Welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking about the restaurant business, and my guest today is Mr. Randy Price. Randy is the founder and president of the Rocky Mountain Restaurant Group that includes a number of restaurants, including Salsa Brava, Santerra Grill, Slayton's Grill, and Piazza Italian Kitchen. Randy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tom. Nice to be here.
So Randy, tell us a little bit how somebody gets started in the restaurant business.
You know, there's a number of ways. For me, it was more kind of working in the restaurant business growing up. Started off cooking when I was 14 and kind of kept that all the way through high school and college. Went to school for a business degree and was bartending and managing a small restaurant at Arizona State University, actually, and decided I wanted to do it for a career, enjoyed it, and went to Northern Arizona University for a degree in hotel restaurant management, and then started working at the professional level with some larger corporations back in 1989, and have been doing it ever since. Started my own company in 2001.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. What do you think would be the personality traits that individuals that want to get into the restaurant business could benefit from the most?
You know, you need to be comfortable working with others. Obviously, the success of the restaurant is dependent on the people who are touching the customers, the people who are engaging the guests. So you can be the most magnetic personality out there, but if you can't manage people or pick the right people and manage them and motivate them to do the things that need to be done, educate them, teach them, train them, coach them, you're probably going to struggle in this industry. Because it is a tough industry. And a lot of times you're working with maybe a younger mindset. It's a very transient business, so people come and go. And typically turnover in the restaurant business, I've been to restaurant shows where they say, the average annual turnover in a restaurant is 175%. Our turnover is less than 40% in our stores. Probably, last I checked, about 28%. One of the things we do differently is we don't stay open until 2 in the morning. My restaurants are closed on Sundays. My restaurants are closed on holidays. I believe that there's a balance in life that needs to be maintained for people to be happy and employees to be happy.
How did you come upon the decision finally to leave that safer environment of the corporate world where you're getting a paycheck and make that leap into starting your own restaurant business? I
think that's always been in my blood, and I think that was always my plan. I wanted to learn for a couple different organizations. I didn't just work for one. I worked for 2 or 3. Ran one company out of Dallas, and the long-term plan for me has always been to work for myself and to be able to build my own company. It is, quite a risk, and there is quite a bit of risk associated with it. But for me, it was really the only option. I just knew that's what I wanted to do. That's what I've been preparing myself to do and training myself for. So when the opportunity presented itself, I was able to jump on that.
Well, that's great. Well, we're going to talk about that opportunity in a minute, but also I think our viewers would like to know a little bit about, you had this in mind during the entire 12 years that you were in that corporate. What kinds of things were you doing to prepare yourself? I mean, I know that you probably were looking for some learning lessons and so on along the way, but were you stashing away money? Were you meeting a lot of people and doing a lot of networking and those kinds of things along the way?
Yeah, I've got 2 kids, and I had young children at the time, so I wouldn't say I was stashing away a lot of money. I was certainly buying a home and building some equity, and moving and being fairly flexible with my professional career based on where the company needed me and needed me to go. So we did move around the country quite a bit. But no, I didn't have a whole lot of money saved. I was building equity in my home. I was learning from some great people, and I was learning both positives and negatives. I think I tried to take as much out of each opportunity in each store that I was in, with the people I was working with and the people that I was working for. It gave me a chance to hone my management skills, which I think really is ultimately what it really takes to be successful in this industry. How to hire the right people, what kind of people I'm looking for, and more importantly, once you're in your own position and you're managing your own company, how to manage it effectively, how to keep people motivated, how to provide feedback, how to give professional reviews, how to set goals as a company and where we're going to move and the direction we're going to take and how we're going to get there. Getting the team involved and excited about that process, while at the same time keeping them excited about the day-to-day operations of really what it takes to be successful in the restaurant industry. Profit and loss statement tells you how you're doing, but really the battles are won in the shifts.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, we're talking about the restaurant business, and you're referring to management and pro forma financial statements and all the things that are really important. It's sort of the mechanics of entrepreneurship, if you will.
Right.
And that's a very important part of your success. So you made the decision to take the leap out of the corporate world around 2001, and just give us some insight into what occurred there that helped you make that decision and what kinds of opportunity you actually did pursue.
Well, my wife and I were running. I was running a restaurant group out of Dallas. My wife was getting her master's in health education. When she finished that, we decided we wanted to move back to the mountains and raise our kids in an environment that we wanted to live in. So we picked Colorado Springs. Had nothing lined up. Came here with some savings, and I was able to transfer part of my job responsibilities and work out of my house when I got here. Gave me an opportunity to kind of analyze the market, see what was going on, and get a feel and get my feet wet and see who was successful in this market and what the market characteristics were of the areas that were, or the restaurants that were more successful in certain areas, and kind of to really look around and find the right location for us to take our first step and get our first location going. I found a small neighborhood restaurant that was real near my home, and in my opinion, it was in the perfect location with exactly the wrong concept. It was in a location with a lot of young families, surrounded by energy and youth, and it was a concept that really kind of catered to an older clientele, which is fine, but it wasn't the right fit for this neighborhood. It wasn't attracting the young professionals. It wasn't attracting the families. And honestly, when I went to approach that individual and say, hey, do you have any interest in possibly selling your business? I think I saved her life because she was so ready to get out of it. And so it was really a win-win situation for the two of us. After analyzing the market to see really what I felt that certain area needed, I chose Mexican food because I felt like it was something that had mass appeal, very, very fresh. We can take a real fresh spin on it. It's going to appeal to the kids. People love coming in and chips and salsa, the margaritas, high energy, and it just really was a good fit for us. We kind of hit a home run with the first one, which is really where everything got started.
Wow, that's interesting. So you kind of minimized your risk to some extent because you had a position that you were able to transfer to Colorado Springs. So you're able to work out of your home and have a paycheck coming in right while you're investigating. And at the same time, you went, rather than opening a brand new restaurant, you went to look for an existing location and simply just change the concept.
Correct.
So, I mean, that's a strategy that worked for you, and it's sort of consistent with what entrepreneurs do, and that is sort of minimize the risk of exposure and perhaps putting a lot of their own money on the line. So how much, just as a ballpark figure, how much money did you need to invest to get this Mexican restaurant up and running?
The first one we opened up, I invested personally about $50,000 and took it as an equity loan against my home. I had a partner from California who invested equal amounts, and then we ended up borrowing about the same, $100,000 from the bank to get the first location up and running.
Okay, about $200,000. And how long did it take you to transform the location, so that it was up and running now as a Mexican restaurant?
We got we went in and started doing the renovations, and we were open within about 4 months, and we opened up real strong. It was busy, and it was just everything I had hoped for, and just kind of like hanging on to a freight train and keeping up with it.
Wow.
But honestly, the good news was the payback was pretty quickly
good.
on that first store. So we got in there. We were able to be smart on our construction costs. I was very involved in the process and very involved with the contractors and knew kind of what I wanted going into as far as layout and design and efficiency flows. So I was very, very hands-on in the construction process, which is really something I really enjoyed doing.
Right.
And the payback on that store was pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of your corporate experience was now coming to bear in terms
Exactly.
of the flow of work and everything. So that was a big, important part of your success in that first store.
Absolutely.
Great. So where'd you go from there? So you opened this first Mexican restaurant, and I'm assuming that was the Salsa Brava restaurant?
Salsa Brava in Rockrimmon, you bet.
And then, so where did you go from there?
I'd always wanted to be downtown, and there weren't any opportunities for me downtown. I was negotiating on a location before I ran across the Salsa Brava neighborhood location, the first store, and I just wasn't able to really work with the landlord on that to make that come to fruition. So about a year and a half after we opened Salsa Brava, a restaurant downtown Colorado Springs that had been there for about 4 years, took a pretty big hit after 9/11. They were really, really high end, and they were really struggling. And I'd heard that location was for sale, so I began negotiations on that spot. And that took about 4 months to get through negotiations, and then it was another 3-month build out. Very similar to what we did with the first store, very involved with the contractors, kind of had the vision, knew where we were going to go. We wanted this to be a little more upscale because it was in a downtown market, a little more affluent market, and that was Santerra Grill. We opened that store in May of 2004, and that was our second location.
And what's the concept at Santerra Grill?
Santerra is innovative Southwest, so it's a twist on Mexican. I would call it more a little bit Latin, but we're doing dry-aged steaks and fresh seafood, tableside ceviche, tableside guacamole, great handcrafted margaritas, great enchiladas. We do a blue corn shrimp and lobster enchilada.
I'm getting hungry.
Yeah, dry aged filet mignon
Yeah.
and fresh sea bass tacos, and
Oh,
so
wow.
really still very simple, simple basic foods, but a twist on fresh flavors, and neat plate presentations. And honestly, I think the main factor we've been so successful in our stores is we really try to be a good value, and we really focus on fresh ingredients and menu items that are prepared from scratch in the kitchen on a daily basis.
Yeah, I noticed that when you're describing your restaurants, you're always using the concept of we. So I'm assuming that you're always doing these restaurant concepts with some partners.
Yeah, I was up until a point. I bought my partner out, and
I see.
and when I say we, I think I'm referring to maybe my associates.
How many people would you say are working within your Rocky Mountain restaurant group right now?
Over 160.
160. So you went and opened, you had your second restaurant now, Santerra Grill. It opens up in 2004, and you just kept going.
We did, yeah. No looking back.
Yeah. So where did you go from there?
Well, some folks came into the location next to the original store, and they were trying to do a bakery, and their business plan or their business model was a little bit short of where I think it needed to be, and they struggled for a few months, and they came over and approached me and said, have you any interest in maybe taking over this location and making Salsa Brava a little bit bigger? I didn't have any interest in making Salsa Brava bigger because I think sometimes when you change dynamics of a feel or a location, you can lose what you have. There's something to be said about being a little bit smaller and hard to get into, where the energy's high and people are waiting to get in, as opposed to a restaurant that's a little bit bigger and half empty.
You get that exclusiveness, right?
Yeah. So you want,
exactly.
my philosophy is I want the right size locations. I want them to be busy. I want them to be active. I want them to be hard to get into, and I want to create an energy and a buzz with each concept. I had grown up in Kansas City. I have lots of friends in the restaurant industry in Kansas City and the barbecue industry, and I'm a big fan of Kansas City style barbecue.
I've been there. I know it's great food. Yeah, wonderful.
And
yeah.
I felt, what a great opportunity for me to bring Kansas City style barbecue to Colorado Springs. So that was after a little bit of negotiations there. We actually bought that business from those folks with the intention of putting in a Slayton's Barbecue and Creamery was our first concept. The barbecue aspect worked beautifully. The creamery fell on its face. And my point there is not every idea that you have is going to be a home run. You're going to probably fall short of your goals at some point in time. Don't be afraid to be flexible. Don't be afraid to analyze your market. Don't be afraid to listen to your customers and make changes to your game plan to make sure you're keeping things on track.
Yeah, explain to me what a creamery is.
A creamery is where you come in and you pick a flavor of ice cream, and you may want Heath Bar Crunch or Oreos or M&Ms, and you have a marble slab and you're creating it, and you're mixing it together and you're serving it in a cone or a cup. And we did that, and we just found that it really wasn't what we did. It wasn't our niche, and we kept that concept going for about 8 months, and then I decided that I really wanted to get rid of the creamery side and expand the food side and expand the alcoholic and non-alcoholic selections, and I thought it would make more sense with the barbecue, and it actually proved out to be a good move for us.
Okay, so that's Slayton's Grill.
Correct.
So you did Slayton's Grill. When did that open up?
That opened up 2006.
2006.
A year
okay,
after
so
Santerra.
2001, 2004, 2006, steady progress. So what did you do from there? Another restaurant?
Well, then we set our sights on the north end of town, and Salsa Brava had been so successful and really had great appeal, had met my expectations, had met my payback analysis. The north side of Colorado Springs at this time currently is still a pretty hot area, a lot of growth, high disposable income, great demographics. We found a location that we thought would be a really good fit for another Salsa Brava, a little bit bigger. So we began negotiations on that and got that deal done. Started construction. That was the first location we had done really from the ground up. And we put a beautiful kind of flagship Salsa Brava restaurant in the north end of town in the Briargate area. And luckily it kind of opened up the same way the first one did. Just very well received. Lots of energy, real broad demographic spectrum, anywhere from young professionals to construction workers to young families to children. It just kind of appeals to the general masses.
Eventually you went on to found another restaurant, the Piazza Italian Kitchen.
Yes, Piazza Italian Kitchen. And what I did there was I had an opportunity to move Slayton's downtown next to Santerra Grill. It was a 100-year-old historic building right down, heavy foot traffic, great lunch crowds. Nice dinner. We do live music, live blues and jazz down there on the weekends. And honestly, I really felt like the concept in Rock Rimmon next to the original Salsa Brava, I really wanted to change that. So I moved that Slayton's concept downtown, put it next to Santerra Grill, and I converted the former Slayton's to Piazza Italian Kitchen. It's Neapolitan thin crust pizzas. It's a hot concept these days. It's using locally grown artisanal products. We use only fresh products, fresh beef, and we're using all hormone and steroid-free chicken. We're using all farm-raised, grass-fed beef in all of our products there. Real thin crust pizzas, and I just felt like for the neighborhood, it was time to make a little change in that location.
Wow, very interesting, Randy. This has been a fascinating discussion. It's a fascinating story, Randy, and I look forward to the next segment of this show where we're going to explore in much more detail some of your management techniques, your leadership techniques, as well as some more advice about how to get a restaurant started in today's marketplace.
Sounds good.
Now I'd like to take a moment to summarize Randy's journey, starting several restaurants from scratch. To begin with, let's talk about Randy's background. Randy started 4 restaurants and is in the process of building more. He worked in restaurants from a very young age. He had a passion for building restaurants very early on. He received a bachelor's degree in business and then went on to get a degree in hotel and restaurant management. He learned the business by managing restaurants for others. And then his personality skills that helped Randy succeed was he had a very positive attitude, and he was made sure he was outgoing to his customers at all time. He had a knack for motivating the team, setting the vision, and bringing out the best in people. Next, let's talk about how Randy started and how he minimized his risk. He gained lots of management experience for working for many restaurants in the industry and managing those. So he had an idea what he was getting into. And he did lots of upfront homework. He spent a lot of time finding out what his costs of opening and running a restaurant would be, the schedule to get there. He evaluated the demographics and the clientele for the locations that he was interested in. He researched what the competition was doing, and he evaluated the need in that area. And then he surrounded himself with competent people, lots of experts that knew the industries, and competent contractors that could help him pull off his vision. Now it's time to invest in his business. And Randy determined that he needed $200,000 to get started in this business. So in order to minimize risk, Randy decided to get a partner and only risk half of the money himself. So the partner came up with $100,000, Randy came up with $100,000. Randy's $100,000 was a second mortgage on his house and an SBA loan. Now Randy's minimizes risk, but he's still taken a significant amount of risk. What kind of reward do you get for that type of risk? Randy has scaled his model to 4 restaurants, and it's working, and he's growing more restaurants. So there's really no limit on the type of return that he can get. One of Randy's biggest lessons is to watch and listen to his customers and always respond quickly to their needs. Now let's go to the next part of the show and get Randy's advice on starting a restaurant and starting your journey.
Hi, I'm Dr. Tom Denning. We're talking with Randy Price. Today we're investigating the restaurant business. And we know from segment 1 of this show that Randy has had 4 restaurant successes here in Colorado Springs. And what we want to do now is really drill down and get some advice from Randy on what it would be like to open up a restaurant today. Did you think that the HRM, the Hotel and Restaurant Management degree, was something that was very useful? I mean, is that something you would recommend to somebody that wants to get started in the restaurant business today?
I think the education is important. I think the discipline of the education is a good thing to have. It's not necessarily 100% required. I have some of my best managers in my organization now are high school graduates. They're not college educated. I'm looking for people who are focused, know how to work with team members, understand quality, understand guest service, understand the importance of taking care of the people who are going to be taking care of their guests. So I would say that it can be helpful, but it's not mandatory.
You also mentioned that you had some corporate experience. You worked in some big, I guess, restaurants or restaurant chains or something along the way. How important is that to sort of have that background and experience?
Probably a lot more important than the degree, actually.
And what kinds of things did you learn as a sort of, that you took with you as lessons? when
Well,
started
you
your own
learn the
business?
financial aspect of the
Uh-huh.
business, service standards, models on pro formas and profit and loss statements. You're working on somebody else's dime and you're learning and kind of figuring out your own management style and what works best. You're able to work with a number of different operators and kind of pull from the ones that you have the most respect for in terms of the personality characteristics they may carry and what works well for them, and kind of take from that pool to kind of form your own style.
I get it. Yeah, okay, great. So how many years did you spend working in the corporate environment?
Well, actually, I graduated in 1989, and I started my own company in 2001, so about 12 years.
12 years, okay. So Randy, what I'd like to do is focus on the first restaurant that you opened up, Salsa Brava. And
Okay.
let's go right back there into 2001 kind of a time frame and tell us about some of the real things that you faced along the way, the obstacles that you faced and how you overcame those in actually getting this restaurant up and running.
Okay, well, I was certainly looking for the right location. We wanted to have a good demographic base, and when I say demographics, we wanted to have high density, lots of people. We wanted to have a good income base for those people. We wanted to make
How
sure
do you
they
get
had-
that information?
You can get it from any number of marketing associates. If you're working with any type of a broker on trying to find a location, they should provide that for you.
What type of a broker is that? Is there
Business broker.
Business brokers,
Yep.
okay.
If you have any friends that are in the real estate business, they should be able to find you find it if you want to Google it and Google demographic information. You could probably pay a small fee and get the information from services or sites that offer that service.
Okay.
But it's important to know the area that you're going into. Obviously, the higher disposable income is going to drive more sales to the
And
restaurant.
that information is available.
Absolutely.
As demographic, and if you do some Googling and so on, yeah.
Or you can go next to a McDonald's like I did on my first one and figure they did it already.
Right.
For me, it's important to know that there's a high density of rooftops. That's going to give me a good dinner crowd, people that are going to be going out to eat, coming from homes. But at the same time, if you don't have any daytime population, which is going to be businesses, and then you may suffer at lunch. And I really want the lunch to drive the dinner sales, and I want to be busy all day. So for me, it's finding the balance of a good number of rooftops or homes, single family homes, apartments, condos, but also a nice mix of daytime population and professionals that are going to be out for lunch or going to be out for happy hour to kind of give us the lunch and the dinner business. And Briargate really met that model perfectly.
You just used a concept that I need to explore. You said lunch drives the dinner sales. How does that, I don't understand exactly what that means.
Just the energy from lunch and being busy at lunch, and
I
then you
see.
got to regroup for dinner and you got to get reset because you're about to get crushed with happy hour and dinner business. It just kind of keeps things moving and keeps things exciting. And you're moving your product. We've always believed that in our concept, we want to provide the freshest product possible. Our walk-ins will fill up on Monday. They will be empty on Thursday. And it's primarily tomatoes, avocados, and fresh produce. That's just been a huge, huge focus for us as a fresh product and a fresh quality. And people really do embrace that. But the lunch business, if you don't have lunch, you're sitting around twiddling your thumbs, and it's hard to stay motivated. We want to be busy all day. We want to have a good business and a good activity in our restaurants all day long.
So you got some demographic information, and you said, okay, this is the kind of restaurant, this is a good location for a restaurant.
Yeah, it had been a restaurant previously. I felt like it was really kind of hitting the wrong beat. It wasn't attracting the general population that was in the area. It was appealing to a very quiet dinner crowd. When you walked in the restaurant, there may be 2 or 3 tables. If you brought a child with you, kind of all eyes were on you. So it wasn't conducive to the general sense of family that was more prevalent in the neighborhood. And I didn't feel like it was really doing very well based on my few times I'd been in there and kind of observed.
And so you gathered some of this demographic while you're looking at this restaurant and beginning to feel like it's underperforming for the neighborhood and so on.
Right.
And so you bought that business. And now tell us about how it is that you decided upon restructuring it under a new concept.
Well, obviously, as I stated, the concept that I felt was in there was stale. It didn't have any appeal. It didn't have any energy. It was not driving any traffic. Honestly, the center was kind of suffering and slow because there was just not a lot of reasons to go there. But I felt like when you looked outside and you looked at what was right around there, the potential for the right concept in that location was phenomenal. And that's when kind of we decided on something. Let's go in with something that's going to be fresh, that's going to have energy, that's going to throw chips and salsa on the table when you get in, where you can come and have a margarita and enjoy your chips and salsa and have a great kids menu. You've got the flamenco music going. You've got a little more energy. It's almost like going on a vacation for 45 minutes.
Right.
We're
Well,
trying to transform people to a different state of mind.
So it's a Mexican restaurant. Were there a lot of Hispanic families in the neighborhood that led you to believe that this might be the right concept?
Not really, not too many. But obviously you want to do your homework when you're looking at opening a restaurant. You want to see what concepts in that town are successful, why they're successful, who they're pulling in, who they're drawing. I call it culinary espionage. and honestly, it's one of my favorite things to do. I love to go to areas. I love to fly to the West Coast. I love to go to the East Coast and see what are the hot trends, what's going on. If I can bring a hot trend from LA or New York to Colorado Springs, I can be 8 years ahead of the curve here. And I just think it's important to pay attention.
I see. And so did you talk to anybody in the neighborhood about whether or not this Mexican restaurant would be the right concept?
Talked to quite a few people, and then I looked at the demographics to see what restaurants were within a 5-mile radius and what type of food they were serving. You've got 3 places serving steaks. You've got 4 places doing light salads and soups. You've got no one doing Mexican.
I see.
Mexican food is a popular food right now. If you read, the Southwestern, the Asian, the fusion. The Latin is just really hot right now. It's been hot for a long time, and it's going to continue to be hot, in my opinion, for quite a while into the future.
Great.
So I felt like there wasn't a concept in the area that was meeting those
Got
needs.
it. So there's a big gap for a Mexican restaurant. Okay, so you've made a decision to go in that direction. Tell us how you actually then get the idea of what kinds of items to put in there for creating ambiance, how you develop your menus and things like that.
Okay. I have friends that have been very successful in the Mexican food field. I got them all to come to Colorado Springs for a long weekend, and we talked, and we went to restaurants, and we visited restaurants, and we looked at design ideas, and we looked at location, and we roundtabled, and I took notes and made my notes, and then I kind of brought my contractor in who I'd worked with, and it wasn't a real high-profile contractor. It's a guy that I had known from the neighborhood that I thought could do the job for me, and we discussed and we talked, and I kind of shared my vision, and we just kind of matched up. And at that point in time, once we got the sale, the purchase all finalized, we got in there right away. We're ripping down walls, we're kind of pulling things out, trying to see what the space is going to feel like once we got the things out of there that needed to be out of there. I'm a big believer in open space and high energy. I want to be able to stand in one point of my restaurant. I want to circle and be able to manage the whole thing and see exactly what's going on everywhere. If you have a bunch of walls and dividers up, it makes it feel closed, it makes it feel tight, more places to get dirty. And I really wanted to kind of open the space up and then rebuild it from an open space to decide what we wanted to do. One of my friends, I'll never forget this, we were, when I had my group of friends in from town, I couldn't find my buddy Gabe, and I look around and all of a sudden his head popped out of the ceiling, and he looked at me and he goes, "This whole ceiling can go away." And I said, "You're crazy." And 2 days later, the whole ceiling was gone.
Wow.
And honestly, the dimension that we came up with and opening it up and a much grander entrance, and we were able to do some kind of almost Mexican type of courtyard and balcony scenes when you walked in. It was a huge move for us.
Well, I'm getting a sense that you kind of went in there and just started ripping down walls and ceilings and everything, but I know there must have been a plan in there, or was this all just a vision in your mind?
No, there was a plan, but it was a vision in my mind. So I do kind of see things before we start them. But you always want to work with people who have been in the industry, and you always want to listen to your contractors, because as we found, we're not cookie cutter. Our restaurants all have their own individual flair. They all have their own individual style. They all have their own individual unique atmosphere. And I believe in the industry, I've always said this to all my staff, that it's 1/3 food, 1/3 service, and 1/3 atmosphere. But everything is 100% important. You have to have the right atmosphere, you have to be serving the right product, and you have to have the right staff taking care of your customers. But you can't discount any one of those, because without all three, you're not going to make it.
So the contractor has to interpret your vision, isn't that correct?
Right.
And so what does the contractor deliver to you? A schematic or a blueprint or something about
Absolutely.
how the space is going to look?
Yep, we take a floor plan to scale. We clean it up and we start laying our things out. We say, hey, we think we want this to be here, and then we'll say, no, it's not going to work based on the space involved for that area. So
Sure.
we'll move things around once we feel like we've got things in place. And when you're going into a pre-existing restaurant, you have some constraints. You've got a kitchen that's in place and you've got restrooms that's in place. The benefit to having that is it saves you several thousand, hundreds of thousands of dollars not having to put those things in. But at this point in time, now you're kind of handcuffed to somebody else's original design ideas in terms of where they located those.
Sure.
So you really are working on the areas that you can change.
So you're laying out, you've got little, I guess, maybe on a computer screen or something, little tables and things, and you're getting a sense of how many tables you can have in there. You're also looking at workflow design, aren't you?
Yes, workflow efficiencies are important, and I believe that, one of the things I learned in the corporate environment is you want to bring everyone back to a central area. We've got a 7-step program for service in our restaurants, and it has to do with how quickly we greet customers, how quickly first-round drinks get to tables, how we're selling our food, how we're suggesting our specials, how we're following up after the food's delivered to ensure that the food is to the satisfaction of the guest. So it really entails several things: the acknowledgement of the customer, selling the product, follow up on the product, ensuring the atmosphere is where it needs to be, thanking the guests for coming in. But one thing that we also have is we've got a pretty pinpointed system where if I've got hot food in the window, there's only 2 things that you can be doing that override hot food run, and that's a first-round drink or a guest request. So we have a system in place that is built on service priorities, and we incorporate team service into all of our concepts. So typically, if you come in and you sit at my restaurant, your server is going to greet you, or it may be someone else. If somebody walks by a table and sees that there's no bev naps on a table, that signifies to my staff that table has not been greeted. Anybody can greet that table. So we're going to stop. We're going to welcome them to our restaurant. We're going to let them know who their server is. We'll take their first drink order, iced tea, water, soda, margarita, whatever it may be, and then we're going to take care of that customer. Then the server will take over from that point in time. If I'm back in the kitchen and I'm ringing an order in and I hear hot food up, if I'm not running a first-round drink or if I'm not taking care of a guest request, I finish ringing my order, I turn around, I grab that food, I take it to the customer. 90% of the time, it'll be a different person that delivers the food in my store from the person who actually took the order.
Very interesting. So you're thinking about all these workflow items while you're doing your layout for the first restaurant.
Right.
You're looking and sort of imagining how people are moving around within the restaurant.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
Yeah. And where I'm going to pull them back to. I don't want them hiding out in the dining room, ringing in on a computer that's 15 feet from the kitchen, so they're never going to be running food. So I bring everyone back. It's like a beehive.
Right.
Everybody comes back to a central area to do their thing, and that way, when I need somebody, they're there.
So I'm really curious about how you get a menu and how you decide what items to put on that menu.
Okay, good question. I have been in the industry for quite some time. I always keep kind of my greatest hits as I go through my career. So I keep notes and I keep files and I keep things that have worked and things that haven't worked. I'm a huge collector of recipes. I've got files of recipes that have been successful for me in certain restaurants in the past, or recipes that I just really like. If I go to a restaurant and I like their menu, I get a copy of the to-go menu. I'm asking questions when I'm out to eat. I'm like, what is your best sellers? What's selling? I'm looking at tables. I'm trying to see what's happening. Again, it kind of goes back to that culinary espionage term that I referred to earlier. But it's really a matter of just kind of understanding how you want your menu to work. I mean, you want to offer fresh value. You want to offer different ingredients. You want the price points to be where there's a good perceived value for the customers. But one of the main things people miss a lot of times in the restaurant industry is they don't understand cross-utilization of product. They'll build a menu that sounds beautiful and looks beautiful. But the problem is they're only selling 2 of these items every 3 days. So guess what happens to that product when you don't move it? It's not going to be as fresh 3 days after it's prepared as it is the day that you prepare it. So we really try to cross-utilize the products on our menu. We try to utilize as many products in similar items as possible. If I'm going to put shrimp on the menu, I'm going to offer it in several different styles. Shrimp tacos, coconut shrimp, barbecued ribs and coconut shrimp. I'm going to put enough items on the menu that we can move it, manage our product list and manage our product mix, and make sure that we're preparing it and it's getting sold within hopefully 12 to 24 hours after it's prepared.
I see.
But again, I think it's really about, once you decide on the concept, there's plenty of, pick a restaurant. There's thousands of successful restaurants in the industry or in the world or in the United States that serve the kind of food you're thinking about. The internet is a beautiful tool. Go to that restaurant, look at their menu, look on the internet. There's really not that many original ideas in the restaurant industry anymore. I'm pretty convinced of that. Occasionally you'll come up with one that's original, but a lot of times it's really about borrowing, tweaking, making it yours, presenting it differently in a palette that works for guests and in a price point that works for guests. And you want to have broad appeal. You want to sell those. You want to sell those menu items. Once your menu is developed and you've got a nice mix of maybe protein items, which is chicken, beef, and pork, and you've got your vegetarian and your seafood, so you've got an appeal for everybody. You're always going to do menu maintenance, and I think menu maintenance is huge. You cannot let your menus become stagnant. You always need to be innovative. You always need to be changing things. You need to be taking items that aren't selling that much off the menu and adding new items that you think might sell. Where do I get new menu items? I fly to Vegas, I fly to Los Angeles, or I go down the street and I look at a restaurant that's busy and successful and I find out what they're doing and what's working, and I go home and I think about it. Then I get in the kitchen and I play with it and try to make an original idea more original for myself.
I see. Culinary espionage actually sounds like a fun profession. Maybe
Yeah,
I
wouldn't
should
that be
try
fun?
that for my next
A little
profession.
safer than James Bond, I think.
So some restaurants I notice kind of advertise that they have a certain chef on board, and I'm assuming that the chef then kind of creates the menu. But in your case, I guess if you're building a restaurant, sometimes you can build the menu and find the appropriate chef or cooks or whatever. Is
Absolutely.
that correct?
Yeah, and I think, we're talking about the very first restaurant. So obviously we had to have a menu in place for our first restaurant. And we put that menu in place and we consulted people in the industry that are in the same, that I've worked with in the past, that are in the same type of field, and looked at their menus and looked at their recipes and tasted and said no and said yes, and yes here and no there. And it was, a 3-week process. Throughout the construction process, we're doing all these things simultaneously. But I really believe that once you get a team on board and you've got talented guys in the kitchen, why not give them some flexibility and some latitude to come up with some ideas and create things through specials? And if something really hits home or sells great, then you're certainly going to track that. You're going to build a special file, and when you go to redo your menu, you may add that in, and that may be an item that takes the place of something that's not selling that well. I've got a customer that came in, and he ordered a burrito, and he said, I'm going to just bring it to me and bring me this on the side. So he mixed our tortilla soup with our blackened salsa, mixed it together with a little bit of his queso, poured it on top of his burrito, gave me a bite of it, and it was on the menu the next week. And it's one of my best sellers.
Wow, that's great. So listening to customers is a nice way to get a menu developed as well.
And asking questions and asking, and again, back to the genuine and sincere. You don't want to go to a table, and I'm sure people have been there where they say, how was your meal? And before you have a chance to answer, that person's gone. Like, they really don't care about the answer. So really engaging your guest and engaging your staff and opening your ears and slowing down and listening to the answers and kind of processing that and taking the mental notes and moving forward with it. But there's just different ways. But really, that's part of the fun of the business. Is keeping things fresh and keeping things exciting. But my point is, you don't want to have one item on a menu that only has particular ingredients to that individual item, because typically it's not going to be the level of freshness and quality that you want when you serve that if you're not serving enough.
The cross-utilization concept, very good advice for anybody that's thinking about starting a restaurant. So let's also talk about the financial side of this. So you mentioned before in the first segment of the show that you put $50,000 of your own money and you had $50,000 from a partner. How did you work with a bank to get a loan to help you out on getting this thing off the ground?
I think the credibility with my history and my resume and the fact that I've done so much corporate experience was very helpful. That's kind of where the partner came in. He had been very successful in his enterprises and had a strong financial background and a strong personal financial statement to help secure the lease and to help secure the loan. So that's part of it. I mean, there's definitely money out there for people. There's small business, this SBA administration. We've gone down that road since the first store.
So you've taken an SBA loan?
Yep, we've taken SBA loans out to do new stores. I mean, currently, right now, they just signed into law a $30 billion stimulus package for people to grow and add jobs. We are actually have a meeting this Friday because we're going to be opening a store in Denver, and we're going to take advantage of that level of financing, because we feel like we're going to create a situation where we're going to add 65 jobs to the Denver market.
I see.
And so there is money out there, but restaurants are higher risk, so it's a little tougher sell. So you need to have the experience, you need to have the background, you need to have a solid financial plan, you need to have a business plan that talks about your concept, how many people you're going to hire, what are your beliefs, what your objectives are, what your pro formas are, what your financials are. And I always believe that when I look at a location, I'm going to run conservative sales and inflated costs. If I can look at the bottom line with conservative sales and inflated costs, and my numbers are there, I'm moving forward on it.
So I was going to ask you whether the banker required a business plan from you.
Absolutely.
And how far?
And they still do.
They still do. How far in advance do you need to project your financials?
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
That's got to be pretty tough. But
Yeah.
you mentioned that you tried to make it look as though you have lower revenues and higher costs, so that you have a sort of a
Yeah.
base case or worst case type of scenario when you go to the banker to ask them for money.
Right, and I always do pessimistic, most likely optimistic sales numbers. I know where my costs are based on my experience. I know that in my restaurants, in certain locations, I can run a food cost between X and X, and it's going to be there. So when I go in to project my revenue projections or my pro formas for that store, I'm going to pick my revenue base. I'm going to go X plus 2 for that cost item. I've never run a cost that high, but I'm going to show these guys that, hey, you know, these are inflated costs and in my opinion conservative sales, and these numbers still work.
I see. Okay, so the bankers work with you. You got your loan in place. How did you know how much money you were going to need to get this thing off the ground? Was the contractor working with you and doing some estimates of costs and so on?
Yeah, very, very important. You're going to go in and you're going to get a general floor plan schematic. It's much easier to work from a floor plan that's in place. There's always things that are change orders. You're always going to rip out a wall and go, wow, if we could just do this.
Sure.
Here, that would be fantastic. And then you need to put the cost of that and see if it works into your budget and makes sense. But yeah, you're going to do a floor plan. You've got the basic of your build out done. You're going to hand it off to a contractor. He's going to put together the numbers for you. Typically, those are going to be not to exceed numbers, so you're going to know that you're not going to go any higher than that.
I see. So how much money do you need in the bank on day one when you open up?
Depending on the concept, you want to have some working capital. And I'd like to say it's nice to have about $30,000 to $50,000 in the bank ready to go.
Okay.
You certainly don't want to open up with nothing in the bank. But I know people that have done it and they've been successful.
In terms of cost items, can you give us a sense of what are the biggest cost items in the restaurant business and what labor costs tend to be and what kinds of margins at the end of the day, profit margins, somebody might expect if they got into the restaurant business?
I've heard from certain, I've worked for companies that ran 3 or 4% profit. It seems a little lean to me. I'm always trying to shoot for 15% or higher. We have stores that are doing above 20% profitability. We have stores that are younger and still coming along and evolving that are doing under 12%.
Wow, that's high, because I've heard the 3-4% myself.
Yeah. So I think it depends. It depends on sales solve a lot of problems. If you don't have sales in the restaurant industry, then you're not going to make it. So your first focus is, when I open a new restaurant, I'm not really worried about cost. I'm more worried about customer experience. I always teach my staff that if you make the decision with the guest in mind, 99.99% of the time you have made the right decision, and I will never second guess that call. So err on the side of the customer. Always err on the side of the guest. Once you have sales, the three big hitters are going to be labor cost, and you hit that on the head. That's going to be your biggest hit in the industry. And behind that, you've got your food cost and your liquor cost. So that basically is your gross profit. Those three things are really going to tell the tale.
Sure.
Obviously you want to get in a situation when you negotiate leases that works for you. You've got to run your forecast and your numbers and make sure that the number that you're looking at for rental in that space is going to work. It's going to fall into acceptable ranges of costs, and it's.
So you opened up Salsa Brava. Tell us about the process of actually getting to the opening. You've done the build out. You've got the tables arranged. You got the kitchen set up and everything. And now you're building towards an opening. How do you know what day you're actually going to be ready to go?
You always project an opening. You always project your opening date. And typically that date is not set in stone, and I have yet to make that date.
So you don't advertise it to the world that you're going to be opening on that
I've
day.
yet to actually make that date,
Right.
because my philosophy is you get one chance to make a first impression. 1 week longer in the grand scheme of things is not going to kill me, but if I open up and I'm not prepared, it could potentially kill me.
Right.
So I'm going to open when I'm ready, but I'm always going to pick a target date, based on my contractor's information, and when they run the numbers for you, they're also going to do a scheduling format for you and have an idea that, hey, we should be wrapped up by this day.
I see.
So I'll pick an opening date. I'm going to firm that opening date probably about 4 weeks before we finish construction. But the most important thing, once your tables are in place and your contractor's wrapping up and tightening up loose ends, is you better get the right staff.
So how far out are you beginning to hire? Before, so
3
you got a
weeks.
grand opening. So 3 weeks out, you're
3
hiring.
weeks, now hiring signs are up. I'm bringing in 2 or 3 other people to help me do the initial interviews. Here's what I'm looking for. These are the personality characteristics that I'm looking for these particular positions. We go through interview questions. We have a list of interview questions that we ask people because we're looking for a certain type of person. And we're going to probably interview 100 people to hire maybe 10.
Mm-hmm. How do you do your staffing plan? How do you know how many people you're going to need?
You know, you're going to work the number of, you're going to run a 4-table section, so you figure out how many tables you have in the restaurant, you divide it by 4. If you're running 7 shifts or 7 days a week, 2 shifts a day, you've got 14 shifts to cover with that many people to make it work. You take that, you multiply it, you divide it by an average of 4 shifts per person per week, and that kind of gives you a ballpark of what you're going to need for that position.
I see. And
Yep.
you got cooks, and you got wait staff, and
Bus
you got
staff, bartenders, cooks, dishwashers, busboys, everything.
right. And
Yeah.
is there some place a person could go to learn about how it is that they do staffing for restaurants? Is there a checklist or something that somebody might consult?
You know, I'm not sure, and I know we had talked about putting one together, but I think that there is, you know, it's not rocket science. It's basic math, and it's basic functionalities of table numbers and customer turns and shifts per week that you're going to be operating. You know, then there's the factor of 20% of the people I hire aren't going to last 3 days. So I'm going to take that number times 1.2.
I see. And when you're in that 3-week window, then hiring people, are you also doing some training or orientation, getting them ready for the opening day?
Well, we're gonna once we extend an offer to them, the next thing we do is we say, great, you're hired. Here's your menu test. When you come back and you can pass this menu test with 90% or greater efficiencies, then you're officially hired. You know what that does for me is it puts the ball in their court, and I'm gonna do a little commitment check and see how serious they are about wanting this job.
Well, tell me about the menu test. Does that mean a memorization of everything on the menu?
Memorization. What do we have for appetizers? Talk to me about ingredients. You know, tell me about salad dressings. How do we prepare this? What does dry aging of a steak mean? How do muscles and tendons break down when you dry age steaks? Why do we dry age? But it's different. I will give them the test, then I hand them the answers. And I say, here's the answers to the test. This is the exact same test I'm going to hand you when you come back. You need to pass this thing with 90% or better. Once you do, you're hired.
I see.
You know, once we hire them, they've already got a general familiarity with our menu. They know our products. It kind of puts them one step ahead. That way, when we're in our training classrooms, oh yeah, I know that club salad. I know exactly what that is. So
Yeah. And you mentioned that you hire for attitude. How do you evaluate that?
We hire for attitude, we train for skill. So it's not that important to me to have someone that's been in the restaurant industry for 15 years as a server at X number of restaurants. You know, what I'm looking for is genuinely sincere, nice people. People that have a nice smile, people that make good eye contact, people that have energy, people that understand teamwork. You know, I always check references. It's extremely important to me to check references. I will never hire anybody without a reference check. I do believe that work habits are established at a young age, and it's a kind of behavioral thing. It's kind of hard to change. If they've been great employees for previous employers, they're probably going to end up being a good employee for me. So we do reference checks with all of our people. But it's kind of a gut feeling. It's kind of just sitting down and spending 5 minutes talking with somebody and having an idea, and then following up with the reference checks. And then there's obviously when we do a reference checks, we've got questions for references. You know, how well did that person work with their teammates? Would you consider this person a good applicant for this position? Is this person eligible for rehire? So, and we normally have a pretty good idea if we're going to hire that person anyway. And typically when we get to that point and we feel like we're going to make an offer to that person, the references usually check out. Okay. On a rare occasion they won't, and then at that point in time, you know, we'll say, you know, at this point in time we're gonna continue to look.
Good. Moving towards grand opening, tell us how that process sort of unfolds.
Grand opening is a big deal. You know, you're doing lineups with your staff, you're talking about it, you're getting them excited. One thing that we have always done is we have a VIP. And we are going to start, our training is the same in every store. We begin training on Monday, we have orientation Monday night. We get a big bowl of M&Ms, we pass them around to everybody, and we don't tell them what we're doing, and then we start and we say, okay, for every M&M you took, I need to know one thing about you. So we go through, and it's really kind of building the family, you know, letting people get to learn about the people that they're going to be working with. They may know, you know, they may learn something they don't know, but it's kind of like, okay, guys, now that we're here, you know, we're the ones that are going to be opening this restaurant together. Let's get to know each other. Let's become a family. Let's make sure we've got each other's back. Let's have some fun with this. Let's be professional, and let's knock this one out of the park. So let's get excited about this. So really the first night is going to be kind of more of just getting to know people, getting to know their names, filling out paperwork, going through all the manuals, which is pretty dry, and getting everything filled out, W-2s and W-4s filled out.
Sure.
And then we kind of jump into the meat of things on Tuesday. We'll have the cooks in the morning. They'll be cooking. We'll bring the servers in the evening and some more cooks in the evening. And then we're going to go through stations. We may have ticket writing as one station. We may have the bar as one station, and we may have food descriptions as another station. So we'll have 3 teams going at one time, 3 trainers working one trainer per station, and then we rotate through. So we may have one team going from the bar to the food description, and then food description back to the orientation aspect of paperwork or whatever else we're doing there. But so we're working people through different segments of the restaurant.
You're in the restaurant is where the
In the
training's
restaurant,
going
yeah,
on.
we're working it in the restaurant. So one group could be tasting plates and looking at all the appetizers. Hey, here's the appetizer, taste it. Tell me what you think about it. We're going through menu descriptions. We're walking through. Like I said, the other group could be going through ticket writing. We could have one group on the computer. So we're doing teams basically for the first 2 days. We're going through all the areas that we want to cover.
So you're cross-training people.
Cross-training people,
Excellent.
yep. Thursday night, we're going to do a dry run with the staff. Always the biggest disaster you've ever seen. You know, you've got them trained, you've tasted the food. Okay, guys, before we invite customers in here, we're going to let you guys eat. So half of you are going to go outside, you're going to walk in like a guest, we're going to seat you. And at that point in time, you better have a piece of paper in your back pocket and you better be taking good notes on everything you need to change that you thought was going to work that's not going to work. Because tomorrow night is the VIP night. We've already handed out the invitations. We've got 250 people coming between 6 and 9:30, staggered seatings. They're coming in, they're eating for free, everything's complimentary. It's a chance for us to get some buzz going in the neighborhood, get the right people, you know, in the restaurants, seeing what we're doing, and then and kind of talking about us. So we're going to, the week of training is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is training, Friday is dry run, Saturday is dry run. We do Friday dinner, Saturday lunch. We regroup on Sunday and close. If we had a great first week, I usually take all the trainers out to brunch somewhere. We open for business on a Monday. Always you want to open for business on a Monday because it's the slowest day of the week. Gives you time to build towards the weekend.
And you've also mentioned quite a bit about some of the tools and techniques that you use to motivate and keep everybody sort of in line with your vision of what kind of service you want to deliver to your customers. And I'd like to give you a chance to tell us a little bit more some of the tools and techniques that you might use to make sure everybody is living up to your vision of what kind of restaurant you want.
Sure. You know, for me, it's communicating to my general management teams and to my teams. I kind of now I have 5 restaurants. I kind of manage 5 teams. I've got 5 general managers and either 5 kitchen managers or executive chefs, depending on the concept. So I'm really kind of sitting in on manager meetings, talking to them about kind of where we're going, reviewing financial performance. This is the vision we're having. You know, we just introduced a new tapas menu in our restaurant downtown, which is small bites, and it just is really a neat thing. Instead of coming in and ordering one big appetizer for $9, you can come in and order 4 different tastes for $2 a piece, and really kind of get a little more spectrum and range on what we're trying to do and what we're offering for different flavor profiles.
Those are very popular today.
Yeah,
tapas,
they're hot. They're real hot. When I do my reviews with my managers, I tell them it's a wheel, and if you have spiritual health, physical health, mental health, financial health, and all those things are flowing and moving good, you're going to be much more effective to me as a manager or an employee than someone who is working 80 hours a week and has no time with their family and is getting out of balance. So we try to maintain a balance in our lifestyles, and I try to provide a good quality of life for my management team and my employees. I'm kind of managing the management teams, but I'm also the best busboy in the company, to be quite honest with you. So when I come in the store, I'm rolling up my sleeves, I'm bussing tables. I feel like that's the best way that I can talk to my customers. The employees like to see me working. They know I'm not afraid to pick up a dirty plate, run it back. I'm happy to run food. Makes me remember where all my table numbers are. So when I come in the restaurants, I'm working it. I'm talking to my guests. I'm talking to my customers. I'm having fun. I'm bussing tables. I'm running food. I'm getting behind the line with handfuls of spoons. I'm going through every single product. I'm tasting the product. I'm looking at the product. I'm giving feedback to my guys in terms of, hey, this looks great, or hey, let's get this replaced. This needs to be a little fresher. Let's toss that and make sure.
So leading by example, or what they call management by walking around, is a big part of your approach.
Very, very, very big part of our approach. And then we also do things on quarterly basis. We'll have sales contests in the stores. We had similar concepts where we had a margarita contest. We paired people up into teams. We'll take the 4 winning teams and we'll get a little bus and go up to Denver and maybe go to Benihana's or another one of our favorite restaurants and just have a fun night together out, and kind of the other employees get to see who won. And it kind of generates a little spark and a little fire. They want to be on the bus the next trip that we do that.
Competition going on.
Yeah, a little friendly competition always seems to be a big motivator in the industry. We always praise in public. We always reprimand in private. So if we're in a lineup and someone's doing a great job and they're doing good things, we want to make sure that the other employees know and hear how much we appreciate that employee's hard work and their efforts and making sure our customers and our guests are taken care of. So we're always going to praise our people in public. If we need to do some reprimanding, or if there's performance issues, we're going to do that in private. We're going to pull them in the office, sit down, and say, hey, this is some things I'm noticing. You need some work here. I know you're on our team. I know you're excited to be here.
Right.
I think you're just a little sidetracked right now. And Tip will get to get him right back on track.
I understand you're going to be doing a team building exercise in the next couple of weeks too.
Yeah, we have a fun one coming up. I'm taking all my general managers and kitchen managers to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. So we are hiking down to a place called Havasu Falls. So we've got everybody grouped into teams. We've got the itinerary scheduled out with breakfast, lunches, and dinners. Every team will work with one other team at least one time, preparing food or setting camp or breaking down camp. We're all going to hike in 10 miles together. When we get down to the bottom, we're going to be doing some team building, and we're going to be having some fun. We're going to bring some books. We're going to relax. We're going to have nice little happy hours and have some fun. We're going to swim. We're going to explore. But we will spend 2 or 3 hours strategizing and talking about business, and we're kind of recapping our events through 2010, what our goals are for 2011.
Wow. Sounds like a great place to do it. So you need to keep them motivated. You need to keep them focused on customer service and creating value for customers every single day.
Absolutely, and we have lineups before every shift. We bring the staff together. We talk about our goals for the day. We talk about the fresh sheets, what we're doing. Here's some new items. Let's get some feedback. Let's introduce these items. But it really is a game plan before each shift, and it gets people kind of excited for the shift and motivated and sets goals, as opposed to someone just coming in, getting their apron, going about their business, and clocking out. We want to make sure we're all together. We're all on the same page. We're all working towards the same common goals. And we're excited about being there. And I want them to make sure they understand that we appreciate our customers that come in to dine with us, and we want to make sure that we always let them know that. Our goal as a company has been, when a customer leaves our restaurants, our intention is for them to walk out the door with the intention of coming back and hopefully bringing 1 or 2 people that may not have had a chance to visit our restaurants yet.
Wow, I can see why you've been successful. That sounds like a great leadership approach. And I certainly know that when I go out to eat, I really look at the service as a big part of my overall experience with that establishment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Something you got to pay attention to. One thing we do is we run inventories on the 16th of the month and the 1st of the month. A lot of restaurant operators that get in this industry, they don't know they're out of money until they go to write their last check, and there's nothing in the bank account. Mm-hmm. So what we try to do is obviously have enough working capital going into it, but at the same time, we always want to know where our costs are. And we do a real good job with that. We're tracking our controllable expenses, supplies, comps, utilities, those kind of things. What can we do as a team to help control those costs? We know where our labor is every shift. We run our labor numbers. We know what our labor is on a shiftly basis, which translates to a weekly basis. We run our food costs every 2 weeks. If something goes up in a certain area, we can run that food cost every week if we need to until we get it back down. Mm-hmm. We don't categorize everything into one big group of food. We don't categorize everything into one large group of alcohol. We break it down to produce, dairy, food other, non-alcoholic beverage, seafood, meat. That way you're not looking for a needle in a haystack. I see. If you're looking over your numbers and you see something jumps up, you can pinpoint where it was. Hey, meat went up 2 points. Let's take a look at meat. Let's make sure we're really managing our product. Let's not kid ourselves that employee theft can be a big part of this industry, and if you don't control it, or at least if you're not aware of it, it can take a lot of people down. So
you're comparing your restaurants over a period of time and measuring how well you're doing from one period to another. Are you also looking at other restaurants to see how your costs are comparing?
Yeah, I compare the restaurants, the similar concepts, I compare to each other. But for me, it's more an equation of we know what every menu item costs us on the menu. So at the end of the period, I can run a product mix, and based on the number of items I sold and the items I sold, I can know what my ideal food cost would have been with no waste.
I gotcha.
So where am I at in relationship to my ideal, which is called a theoretical food cost. Mm-hmm. So your theoretical food cost is your ideal food cost with no waste. Then how far off the mark are we from that? How well are we doing executing? How well are we doing maintaining our walk-ins? Are we keeping things organized? Are we portion control? Are we doing a good job with portion control? 2 sides of that spectrum. You never want to be so tight on portion control that you're impacting value. Right. So we got to make sure we're following specs, following procedures, specifications, and we're building things and making products that are consistent on a day-to-day basis, because consistency is what got McDonald's to where they are these days.
Sure, and there's a recipe for success in the restaurant business, and isn't that correct? I mean, you have the right atmosphere and the right kind of environment for people to buy food and drive sales, and then controlling your costs.
Absolutely.
Right.
Creating the space and getting the right people on board, and providing a great product is the first thing. And then once you're able to get that accomplished, then it really is coming in and learn how to manage your costs and manage your control, and then manage your people. Keeping people motivated and making sure that they're working towards the goals of the company, and that they understand what our goals are. We want to make sure that they have a very clear understanding where we want to be and how we're going to get there, and that we're providing feedback and letting them know, how we're doing on achieving those goals, and letting them know when they're helping us with that or when they're not helping us with that.
Wow. I'd love to be part of your team. I don't know if I could make the hike down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, however. If somebody were going to be starting the business today, what kind of tips and advice would you have for an individual that wants to get into the restaurant business for the first time?
I think the first thing, you need to go out and you need to work for a successful restaurant operator. And you need to really kind of get a feel for it, make sure it's an industry that you think you're going to enjoy. It definitely takes a certain type of individual to be in this energy. You have to have high energy. You have to enjoy working with other people. You have to be willing to roll your sleeves up. You have to be able to communicate with customers. You have to be a good listener. So I think the first thing I would say is go out and think about the type of restaurant you might want to open, and try to find a job in that similar type of concept to make sure it's a good fit for you. Obviously, I think that if you're passionate about the things that you do, your chances of success are greatly increased. And if you can do things that you like to do, it doesn't quite feel like work so much. And I think that's one of the things that I like, waking up in the morning and I'm excited to get to work, because I'm excited to see what's going on. I'm excited to see my people and thank them for a job well done. And so to me, it's not, I can't think of anything else I'd rather be doing.
So the positive attitude that you said, that's important to have, because
Right.
there's a failure rate in the restaurant business that
Yeah.
people hear, and it's sometimes you can hear the failure rate as high as 9 out of 10 concepts will fail.
Right. But maybe that 10th might be killing it.
So if I came to you today, I said, Randy, I want to start a restaurant, what would you tell me?
I'd probably sit down and have a little conversation with you and see why you want to do that, what type of restaurant you're thinking of getting involved with, where you're thinking of doing it. I think I'd want to maybe test the waters and see why you came up with that conclusion. Some people want to have a restaurant just because they like to go out to eat.
Right.
And I think that there's more to it than that.
There sure is. There sure is, and we certainly learned that from interviewing today. So today's show is featuring the restaurant business, Mr. Randy Price, who is the president and founder of Rocky Mountain Restaurant Group. Randy, thank you for coming today.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
I've definitely learned a lot about starting a restaurant today with Randy Price, and I hope you have as well. Let's take a moment and summarize Randy's advice for you to get started on your journey. Let's start out with recommended skills. Randy says that the education he received, the Bachelor's of Science in Business and the Hotel and Restaurant Management degree were helpful, but the experience he gained managing restaurants for other companies in advance was much more useful and almost essential. Next, you need to focus on matching the location with the type of cuisine that you intend to offer. So you need to get the demographic information, and you can get it from realtors and business brokers on rooftops and what type of income levels and age, and is it a family area? And then based on that demographic, does it fit with the atmosphere and menu that you're thinking about offering? And you need to do a little culinary espionage, which is what is working in the area. What types of meals, what types of cuisine, what types of products are in demand. And then it's good to take a look at what are the national trends, what cuisine is hot and what is not overall. You can find an existing location and update to fit the demographics, or you can build from scratch, which is a little more expensive. For example, Randy determined that there was a very young demographic in the area he wanted to start a restaurant. So he decided to start a family-style restaurant with a fun atmosphere. In his words, it gives you a 45-minute vacation with fresh, affordable menu, kids menu included. If it had been an older location, it might have been, Randy might have went with a more formal restaurant, and maybe the menu could be a higher priced menu as well. Now, to really nail down the ambience and the menu, develop your vision and information from experts. Randy brought in experts from around the country in different types of restaurants and helped him carve out his vision and his menu. And you need to decide if you want to be unique for each restaurant that you're gonna go with. It's one model that you're gonna scale 50 times, or you're gonna open 4 like Randy did and make them different at each location. And then you need to work very closely with the contractor to accomplish your vision. Make sure they stay on schedule and that they stay within the cost estimates that they provided. You need to consider the workflow also when you're designing your vision. Where is going to be the meeting place? How can I provide the best service? What's the flow of the restaurant to get the food out there quickly when it's hot, to get the drinks to people quickly, and maximize your team? You want to make sure that that flow maximizes your service. A great rule of thumb that Randy brought up is the ratio for you to succeed. It is 1/3 food, 1/3 the type of service that you have, and 1/3 the type of atmosphere. But keep in mind that all are 100% important. Your menu can develop over time. Listen to your customer, keep notes on what works and what does not, and continually improve it to better fit your customers' needs. Also find out what's selling in other restaurants and try it and add it to your menu. Consult with experts and also sit down with your chef and say, what types of things would you like to try? Another important point was cross-product utilization for efficiency and freshness, meaning if you're going to buy fresh seafood, can you use it in several different dishes for lunch and dinner, and so you're constantly resupplying and you're always serving fresh. Find the price points that work for the type of guests that you're going to have based on your demographics, and have constant awareness on customer feedback, and do menu maintenance to make sure that you're responding to that feedback. Now the next step, where do you secure financing? Well, you need a very good business plan, professional business plan with 5 years of forecasting. And you have to clearly communicate your cash needs, how many jobs you're going to create, what type of return you're looking for. Randy found the SBA to be a very good resource. But you will most likely need to leverage your own assets, whether it's your house, bank accounts, credit cards, or whatever. Financing will get easier with each success, and you can leverage the previous restaurant that you opened. Make sure you have enough reserves for working capital so you don't get caught in a slow cycle. And always pay attention to your big costs and be very efficient with those. Shoot for profits of 15% or higher, but in order to get that, you're going to need volume. Labor is going to be your biggest cost, then food, then liquor. Next step, now we have to get prepared to open. Don't open till you're ready, and you must open when you say. And start hiring within 3 to 4 weeks of the opening date. Hire the right people. It's incredibly important. Estimate the need and figure that you're going to have to interview 100 people to find 10 of the right ones. So it'll be a lot of time to interview. You can hire for attitude, but you can't train for that. Someone can serve a burrito, but they may not do it in a nice way. So make sure that they have the attitude from the beginning. And always train and test your employees before you're open. Make sure they know the menu, and that they understand the ingredients and they understand the sales techniques that matches your vision. And build the team so everybody gets comfortable and gets to know each other. And very important that you do a dry run before you're open. Pick a night, friends and family, and go through all the different scenarios, work out all the bugs, and then open on the slowest day of the week, like a Monday. So you can work out the kinks live before your big day on Friday and Saturday. Now, in order to manage the team, create a team and manage them by example. Be the busboy. Work in there, get your hands dirty, and be there. You're a part of the team, and also they can learn from how you do it. A good way to motivate the team is have contests. Reward the teams for the best behavior and the best service. Always praise your employees in public, but reprimand them in private. And do retreats with key employees to carve out a vision for the following year and always improve. It's always important to meet at the beginning of a shift and go over the goals for that day as a team. Now, in terms of managing the business, keep good inventory and know where your costs are at all times. If you keep a good handle on inventory and costs, it helps to control theft as well, because you know what the numbers should be. The goal is always no waste, and so set that goal and get as close to it as you can. Make sure that your great product is always consistent in all areas, so the customer will always know what they're going to get. There's a couple of tips and advice that Randy would like to pass on to you. Work in successful restaurants in an area that you want to start a restaurant. Wildly important. And make sure it's a good fit for you. If you have passion, your chances of success are greatly increased. 9 out of 10 fail, so you have to do your homework, have to have a passion for it. Well, I hope this is helpful, and good luck with your journey if this is the right fit for you.